Matter of fact, we started this little thing called Upward Basketball. Very first year, we had about 150 kids. Year after that, we had about 250 kids. Year after that, we had about 350. Year after that, 450. Year after that, 480 kids. Can I just tell you something? If you've got a gym where it's a normal-sized gym, but you can play 2 games at one time on the side courts, and you got kindergarten through 6th grade, and you got 480 kids, I just want to fill you in. You are full. Full. Unless some guy comes up to you, he says, Kez, I got to tell you something. I said, what's that? He said, I've been doing some figuring, and you know what? If we practice Monday through Thursday, we play games on Friday night and on Saturday, I worked it out, we can get 520 kids in here. I said, you have got to be kidding me. He said, no, man, we can do it. I said, all right, let's try it. Next year, we started registering. We got almost 520 kids. The year after that, it was 3 months. Right before, 3 months before basketball season, this guy walks up to me in church. This has never happened to me before. He pulls out his checkbook, and he pulls out a blank check. He signs the bottom of it. He said, here, this is for my kids' basketball. I want you to sign them up, fill in the blank, and how much it is when the time comes. I said, whoa. I said, man, registration is not for 3 months. He said, yeah, I know. I don't want them to miss out. I said, man, no, you're not going to miss out. He said, man, you hadn't heard people talking? There's people come from everywhere. You're going to be turning people away. I said, man, there is no way. And by the way, we don't do any special favors for anybody. This is not just for our church members. It's for the whole community. I don't care whether you're a church member or not. I don't care whether you're red, white, blue, green, yellow, orange, just for anybody, anywhere. And we're going to have equal opportunity for everybody. And you're going to have to come at the same time as everybody else. He said, well, you better be there early because I'm coming early. I said, I'll be there early. You come on. He said, all right, you be ready. I said, come on. Come on. We're going back and forth in church, Well, 3 months goes by. I get all my volunteers lined up. We're ready to roll. And after everything's ready to roll, I decide I'm going to go out there and unlock the door. Y'all ready? Okay, here we go. And I walk outside to unlock the door. And I'm not kidding you. I'd never seen this before. I looked out there. There were people wrapped all the way around the building. They'd gone into the parking lot, up and down the parking lot line. It looked like a line at Six Flags or something. It was unbelievable. People started coming in. They signed them up. We signed them up hour after hour after hour. We literally were signing up people all day long, all of our volunteers just getting after it. By the time it finally slowed down and we were done, and we locked up the doors, swept up the floors, got everybody down, we had signed up 520 kids. 27 kids on the waiting list. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not real proud of this today, but at that moment, I kind of bowed up just a little bit. Man, I'm thinking I can't hardly wait to get home and tell my wife about this. Man, I'm getting all the volunteers out. I'm trying to be cool, let everybody out. And after they all leave, this is before cell phones. It was a long time ago. And so, I got them all sent out. So I get in my car and I'm driving home and I threw open the front door. I said, sweetheart, guess what, baby? She came running down the steps. She goes, what is going on? I said, baby, you're not going to believe it. She said, what is? I said, honey, we got the most happening basketball league in all of Spartanburg, South Carolina. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, baby, we got 520 kids, 27 kids on the waiting list. What you think about that, baby? And she said, what? I said, 520 kids, 27 kids on the waiting list. I said, give me some loving. Come on. And she's looking at me. She said, sweetheart, if that's what you wanted to do, was put 27 kids on the waiting list, then you did good. And then she used that little nonverbal exclamation point that some ladies have. You know the one. I said, but sweetheart, what about the 520? She said, but what about the 27? I said, honey, 520 kids. She said, what if one of those 27 would have been your daughter? I said, well, I signed her up early. What? We didn't talk about it a whole lot more that night or for a few days to follow, as I remember. But I need to kind of tell you the state of our church at that point. Can I just tell you something? I was very blessed to be in an awesome, happening, moving, shaking church, okay? I mean, it was moving and shaking. It was good. I mean, our Sunday schools were full. Our sanctuary was full. Nurseries were full. Choir was full. It was one of those kind of things, even though we had about 4,000 or 5,000 people, I mean, they were coming and going all over the place. Can I just tell you something? I know who you are. You know who I am. I know where you sit and you know where I sit. But whatever you do, don't you sit where I sit if you know what I'm talking about. We had gotten entirely too comfortable in our church. And thank goodness our pastor had enough leadership to realize it. He brought us all together. He said, my friends, I'm going to tell you something. He said, we have not grown at all in the last couple of years. And if we don't start doing something to start taking off and grow, we're going to start going backwards. He said, now we're bringing in a man that's going to come talk to us about how to grow our church. And he decided, he said, I want to gather up every single one of our staff and all of our spouses. I want to gather up all the Sunday school teachers and their spouses. We're going to gather up every deacon and all their spouses. We're going to have a big dinner together in the dining hall, and we're going to invite Dr. Johnny Hunt to come up from Woodstock, Georgia. Now, I don't know if you ever heard of Dr. Johnny, but let me just tell you a little bit about him. See, he used to be a pastor up in South Carolina, but down in Woodstock, Georgia, they asked him if he'd come down and be the pastor. And so he went through all these different, interviews with the personnel committee. And it got down to the end, and he said, Pastor, I think we'd like to call you to come be a part of your church. He said, well, before I can come to be a part of your church, you need to understand something. If I'm going to be the pastor of your church, you're going to have to go by my philosophy. And they said, well, what just exactly is that philosophy? He said, well, it's pretty simple. It goes like this. Whatever it takes. He said, that's it. Whatever it takes. And they said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. He said, if we got to go to 2 services, we'll go to 2. If we got to go to 3, we'll go to 3. And if we got to go to 4, then we'll go to 4. If we got to go to 2 Sunday schools, we'll go to 2. If we got to go to 3, we'll go to 3. And if we got to go to 4, then we'll go to 4. Personnel committee says, could you excuse us just a second? He said, sure. They kind of gathered up over here. He said, look, we got a sanctuary seat 600 people. We only got 400 members. We don't even know where 200 of them are. I say we go with the philosophy. So they said, okay, good. They come back over, Pastor, we're in, man. Whatever it takes, okay? All right. So he says, great, I'd love to come. So this is what he does. He goes down there. He begins to pastor that place. And you know what? In a matter of months, they had to go to 2 services. Wasn't long after that, they had to go to 3. And then they had to go to 4. Then they had to go to 2 Sunday schools. Then they had to go to 3. Then they had to go to 4. He gathered up those same people. He said, my friends, it is time for us to do whatever it takes. Now, by this time, these people are scared to death. They're over there thinking, now what exactly does that mean? Now what? He said, I think we ought to go out there and buy us a piece of property, and we ought to build us a place big enough for all these people who want to come hear about Jesus to come hear about Jesus. And so that's exactly what they did. They went out there and bought them a big old piece of property. They moved all that dirt around, and the very first thing they did was built a sanctuary that seated 3,500 people. And the day they moved in, they had to go to 2 services. Now, that was 23 years ago, and just recently, they just built a sanctuary that seats 7,200 people. And the day they moved in, they had to go to 2 services. Now, granted, I understand, if you know anything about Woodstock, Georgia, you know that it's a growing metropolis, and people are moving there from all over the place, apparently to go to church. Well, this is the guy that's going to come and talk to us about how to grow our church, okay? And so we gather up all these people on this night, and everybody's there, all the spouses, all the leadership of the church. And, man, I'm telling you, we have a wonderful dinner together. We have a little quartet. They do some singing. And after we get done eating, we have dessert. They sing some more. No Dr. Johnny, you know. I mean, he's just kind of a little behind time. So anyway, all of a sudden, right before we're about ready to cancel the thing, the double doors come busting open. He comes running in, grabs a drink of water, and throws it back. He says, forgive me. I got caught up in traffic. Probably in his parking lot. You ought to see it. You know what I mean. But anyway, so he shows up there. He says, my friends, I apologize for being late, but I want to tell you something. I'm supposed to talk to you about how to grow your church. I've never been to your church. I don't know anything about your church. I don't have any ideas what kind of facilities you have at your church. I don't know anything about any of the programs at your church. I don't know anything of that stuff. He said, but before I can talk to you about how to grow your church, I'm going to need to ask you some questions. And I want to ask you folks here tonight the exact same questions that he asked us that night several years ago. He said, let me ask you this. Listen close. Why do you have a preschool ministry at your church? Why do you have a children's ministry at your church? Why do you have a recreation ministry at your church? Why do you have a singles ministry at your church? Why do you have a choir at your church? Why do you have a senior adult ministry at your church? For that matter, why do you have a pastor that stands up and preaches from this Bible every Sunday at your church? Why do you do those things at your church? This is where you answer back. I want you to holler out. Why do you do those things at your church? To reach the lost. Can I just tell you something? We're going to get out early tonight. I just got to tell you something. That night, we threw out a lot of great answers, just like we heard a lot of great ones just now. But when Dr. Johnny heard the words, to reach lost people for Christ, he said, hold it. Can anybody here give me a better answer as to why we do what we do in our church than to reach lost people for Christ. Well, I'm ecstatic to tell you, that's the very same response that we had. He said, my friends, if that's really the case, if you so much as got a Sunday school class in this church where some couple walks in, they're looking for a place to sit and there's not anywhere there, so what they do is they turn around, they go back out that door, they get in their car and they leave and they go home. You've just turned away the opportunity to share Christ with that couple, and you had better do whatever it takes to reach them. Now, he preached on that for the next 45 minutes. And all those people who were doubting who this guy is to come and talk to us about how to grow our church, who were sitting back in their chair thinking, we're now sitting on the edge of their seat thinking, what do I need to do? And he closed with this line. I've never heard a man speaking more serious in all of his life, as he pointed his finger, and it was at the end of my nose. He looked out there and said, I've never been to your church before. I don't have any idea what kind of programs that you have. But if you so much as got a gym in this church, and you're turning children away from playing basketball, and you might as well get you a yellow flashing sign, stick it in front of your gym door that says, go to hell, we're full. That statement changed my life. I literally got up out of my chair and ran to my car. My wife, being very well aware of the conversation we had just had and those precious 27 children, got up and ran right behind me and got in the car as I literally wept over that steering wheel. She threw her arms around my neck, and she did not say to me, this is not your fault. She didn't say to me, you're doing all you can do, baby. She didn't say to me, it's okay, don't you worry about it. She threw her arms around my neck and she said, what are we going to do about it? I said, we're going to do whatever it takes to reach those kids. I got up the next morning, I started coming to that church way before anybody else showed up. I was literally walking all over that building with one purpose in mind. I was going to find a place to put 2 basketball goals so we could bring in some more kids. I went into the dining room and the ceilings were too low. I went to every Sunday school class you can imagine. I walked into the sanctuary and I thought, you know what? We can take out these first 12 pews. We got us a court. Man, we have plenty of places to sit. You know, everybody can watch a ball game right here. This would be perfect. A little slope in the floor. We can work with that. And then it hit me. You know what? Before we built that gym up there, we actually had this old gym. And it was down in, we kind of called it the dungeon at that point. We turned it into a youth center. And the old gym, it was a lot smaller, almost like a third of a side of a normal gym. And there wasn't a window in the place. And you had to go down about 5 or 6 sets of steps to get down to the bottom. I mean, I know it was built back in 1962. And I think it was illegal to have a gym in a church back then, but it was down there. And I went down there, and now it's a youth room. It's got this carpet, and it's been down there for several years, and it smelled bad, and it was nasty, and there's Skittles smeared in the floor, and Dr. Pepper stains, and all that stuff. But I walked over to the corner, and I pulled back that carpet, and man, there it was. Every recreator's dream, man, there it was. It was a maple floor. I'm like, yeah. I thought, man, I tell you what, if we could rip up that old carpet, we could put some of that new high rebound carpet down like they use in them elementary schools. All the places already got the lines in it, We could paint this whole place in here. We could put another goal up down here and a goal up down here. And even though it's a lot smaller, I believe we could reach another 200 kids in here. We'll never grow out of that gym. Man, I went to my youth minister and I said, hey, buddy, I got an idea. He said, what's that? I said, what do you think we go down there and rip up that old carpet, put some of that new high rebound carpet down, like they use in them elementary schools? We'll paint this whole place. We'll put a goal up down here and a goal up down here. And if I could use it on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you can have it on Wednesday and Sunday. What do you think? He said, dude, what are you talking about? I said, man, I just want to know if I could do it. He said, man, that's fine. It's great. He said, but I don't have any money in my budget. I said, I don't either, but I just want to figure out if I can do it. He said, knock yourself out. Man, I started getting all the costs together on that carpet and the goals and the paint. Man, after I figured it all out, I went to a man in my church, a mentor of mine, a godly guy, a guy that just helped me with my accountability, one of my partners. And I sat down with him and I began to tell him the whole story, the Johnny Hunt story. And before I could even finish, literally, man, tears just coming to his eyes. And he said, Kaz, how can I help you? I said, you know that old gym downstairs? He said, yeah. I said, I want to go down and rip up that old carpet. I want to paint that whole place. I want to put a goal up down here and a goal up down here. I said, man, we'll be able to reach another 200 kids. I said, we'll never grow out of that gym. He said, well, what can I do to help you? I said, man, we got to go to the recreation committee, and then we got to go to the staff, and then we got to go to the deacons, and then we got to go to the church. He said, Kaz, you got to know what it's going to cost. I said, yes, sir, $11,576. He said, when you need it? I said, 2 weeks. He said, Kaz, it's a Baptist church. Big crowd here. I can tell half of you aren't Baptist, but, you know, they'll tell you all about it. Trust me, man, it ain't happening in a Baptist church, man. That's Committeeville. I'm telling you. I said, well, then what are we going to do? He stood up and he pulled out his checkbook. He wrote me a check for $11,576. He said, you know what? Let's try it. You have any idea how fast you can go through 4 committees with a check in your hand? Right through there, baby. Woo! It has been tested and it works in every denomination. I don't care where you go. Try it out. Man, I'm telling you what, in a matter of 2 weeks, we'd gotten that old carpet. We'd ripped up that old carpet. We put some of that new high rebound carpet down. We painted the whole place, put a goal up down here, and a goal up down here. I put an ad in the newspaper. And man, I'm telling you what, we were so excited. Within a matter of 2 weeks, we had signed up another 200 kids. 27 of them played for free. My wife made sure of it. Yes, sir, buddy. Our church was so excited they didn't know what to do. I was scared to death because we were full again. I'm thinking, what are we going to do next year? I mean, even while basketball season's going on, I'm looking for a place to put another gym. And I just got to tell you, man, I mean, it wasn't like we had a whole lot of different options. And I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to go to a lot of different places around these countries. I've visited a lot of different churches. There's some cool places out there. Man, I visited this one called the CLC, the Christian Life Center. This one called the FLC, the Family Life Center. This one called the ROC, the Recreation Outreach Center. This one called the MAC, the Ministry Activity Center. Can I just tell you something? We didn't have a CLC or an FLC or an ROC or an MAC. We had what we lovingly called a GYM. I mean, I'm telling you, I went to the architect who happened to be a good friend of mine who put all this together, and I said, man, I got to ask you a question. I said, you know, I've looked at a lot of these other cool places, and I said, is there any way we can knock out one of these walls, and man, we could put a whole nother gym right beside it, maybe put one of them running tracks around the top, a couple racquetballs in the middle, you know, racquetball courts or something like that in there. You think we could do that? He said, you know what, I think this just might work. Man, he was gone for like a couple of weeks, and he came back, and he rolled out these plans. He said, Kaz, you're not going to believe this. Look at here. He said, man, we're going to be able to knock out that wall, put some racquetball courts in the middle, got a whole other gym over here, just like this one. He said, man, you'll be able to reach another 520 kids over there. I said, oh, man, this is great. I said, that's incredible. I said, hey, can I get a copy of this? He said, man, that's yours. I said, oh. I rolled that baby up. I tucked it up underneath my arm, and I went to go see my friend. And you know the one I'm talking about. I went right to him. So I go in there, and I sit down with him, and I start talking to him about the fact that we're full. He said, well, my friend, what in the world are we going to do? I said, I'm so glad you asked. Look at here. I laid that thing out there. I said, you know, we can knock out that wall. We put a whole other gym up here. We're going to have us a CLC. He said, Kaz, that's awesome. He said, you got any idea what that's going to cost? I said, yes, sir, about $2.3 million. Would you like to borrow my pen? Come on. He looked at me. He said, Kaz. I said, yes, sir. He said, you don't need another gym. I want to tell you the only thing that went through my mind in that moment. Ephesians 2:10 is one of my all-time favorite verses. This is what it says. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God planned in advance for us to do. Which God planned in advance for us to do. Can I share something with you? This whole thing called Upward, this is not my idea. This is not my vision. This is something God planned a long time ago. We are just God's workmanship created in Him, and we got to make decisions. Are we going to be obedient to pick it up and do what He planned, or is He going to give it to somebody else? This is not my plan. And at that moment, I was sitting there thinking about this and looking at him thinking, my stars, this man has lost his vision. He's lost it. He looked at me, he said, Kez. I said, yes, sir. He said, you don't need another gym. He said, you need 1,000 gyms. In that moment, that vision that God planned a long time ago, it went from right here to right here. This is not my vision. It's yours. It's yours. And it's yours. And it's yours. I'm going to tell you, in a matter of 8 years, gym number 1,000 came across. 3 years after that, I give the Lord a hand, man. That's awesome. God's doing. 3 years after that, gym number 2,000 came along. Currently, over 3,500 programs, different sports. Just last year, first time ever, over 500,000 kids heard about Jesus Christ through Upward Sports. I want to share something with you. It was the same man, Dr. Johnny Hunt, when I was sharing this story with him a few years ago. He said, you know, Kez, what amazes me about that Upward people? He said, man, they weren't satisfied with 400 kids, so they went out and got 4,000. They weren't satisfied with 4,000, so they went out and got 40,000. They weren't satisfied with 40,000, so they got 400,000. He said, you know what? I don't think that group's going to stop till they get 4 million kids. And you know what? We've discovered for every 4 kids, you need 1 leader, 1 coach. And so our vision statement became the 411, 4 million kids, 1 million leaders with the sole purpose of one heart, because it's a race to the heart of the child, and the first one there wins. And you know what? Make no mistake about it. What I'm asking you to do is to partner up with us, to gather up arms, and we're going to go out there and reach our communities for Christ. We're going to get those 4 million kids, and we're going to do it 1 million kids at a time, because we're going to partner with people like you to change your community for Christ. That's our vision. That's what we want to do.